Let's get spooky. This is our Station Boo, where we explore the dark and mysterious corners of the world of horror, and we know that you are dying to listen.
Welcome to the Spooky and Kooky podcast at Earth Station Boo, where we talk all things horror, including our haunted host, or introducing our haunted host, I should say. We have Lisa.
Hi, ghouls and boils.
We have Karen.
What's up, my horrorholics?
And I am Shannon. We are also accompanied today by our lovely friend, Rebecca Perry. This episode, we are going to be gushing about women in horror, and this was actually her idea for this topic. So we're so excited to have her, and we will be talking about our experiences as women and who love horror, and kind of just women in the horror genre as a whole.
Hey, horrorholics, it's time for the Ghastly Report. All the fun, spine-tingling news happening in horror today. Come on, let's get spooky.
Well, ghouls and boils, we got some great news. Finally, after all these years, Mr. Robert Englund, as we know as Freddy, and Mr. John Carpenter, who supplied us with plenty of horror in our lives, finally get a star on Hollywood Star Walk of Fame. It's about time, guys. So they got that. And I'm so happy. That's really cool. If I find the video footage, I'll put it on our group page. Okay. Next. Yeah, I know. Isn't that awesome? And some interesting movies that are going to be around that are coming out. If you've been paying attention, there's this Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, and it's coming only to Amazon and on demand, and they have the second version of this. I have yet to see this. I want to see them.
I kind of like them.
Oh, okay, cool. And then we have Taste of Horror coming around October, where they're actually going to start working on Van Helsing. CBS is taking Van Helsing and making a TV series of it around October.
Isn't this the one that is based off of like the Hugh Jackman, Kate Beckinsale one?
So it should be pretty good. There's a movie that came out that's coming out on Shudder called The Devil's Bath. It looks really, really creepy. I saw the preview for it yesterday. I'll post the trailer up later. And David Brubaker is doing a new movie for A24. We don't know when it's coming out. It's called Mice, and it's a horror movie, and there's a lot of mysterious background about it. So it's kind of hush-hush, and I'm kind of looking forward, hoping maybe we'll get a little preview to it.
Right.
Also, I recommend this movie. It's a German vampire film called Blood Red Sky. I watched it this week, and it's really, really good. It's a thriller and horror all at the same time. And of course, has my favorite practical effects all the way. No CGI. Very well done. And that's all I have for today.
Rock on.
That was actually a good movie. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Karen, did you have anything for the literary world?
No, nothing coming out soonish.
Okay.
All the June stuff already posted in the Facebook group.
Cool. So if you guys want to keep up to date with a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on the Ghastly Report, go to our Facebook group. We will have that. And our Discord is currently under construction. So as soon as it is up and ready, you can definitely check out our Discord for all of like the upcoming information as well. We'll have a whole channel category set just for that, to help you guys out, make it a little easier to find that information. All right, who's excited?
I
think we all are.
Who isn't?
I think we all are. Rebecca, do you want to introduce yourself really quick?
Sure. Thanks again for having me on the podcast. I'm Rebecca Perry, local of Atlanta, and a lover of all things spooky.
As we all are. Well, all right. Well, thank you, Lisa. So now we're just going to kind of go ahead and dive in. But first, I kind of want us all to like talk about our experiences as women who love horror. Horror has been known to kind of be a male-dominated genre, but like the title of our episode, and famously said by Bela Lugosi, it's women who love horror. So let's go ahead and talk about our experiences. Rebecca, do you want to start?
Sure. I don't remember a time that I was not in love with horror and Halloween and all things spooky, which is weird because neither of my parents were, and I was an only child. And also, I was a little kid in the 70s and 80s, so this was, pre-internet. But it's just something I naturally gravitated towards. I've always loved, I think I started with like the classic Universal monsters that I saw on TV. And, like I said, anything Halloween, it still is my favorite holiday. But I, looked forward to that. I looked forward to that more than I looked forward to Christmas.
Same, girl, same.
And, especially but as a girl, like I didn't know, like I didn't have any other friends that were into that kind of stuff. I don't even think I really knew many boys that were into it. And it wasn't until I got a little older and I discovered, magazines like Fangoria that I realized, there's all these other people that like the same stuff that I like. It's amazing. And then of course, now with the internet, you can find, it's much easier to find your tribe, I think.
It is.
Not to mention it's more socially acceptable. I think I'm sure, I know women have always loved horror, but I think now, you're much more open. It's much more, I think, socially acceptable. I know whenever I go to a horror convention, I feel like it's at least half women.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know when I've gone to Spooky in the past, it's been mostly women.
Yeah, whenever I go to horror movies, it seems like, it's always mostly women in the horror films.
I actually, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I can only think of like one, maybe two guy friends who I go to and see horror movies with. Everybody else is women.
Same, yeah. I have a couple of like specific friends that we go see all the horror movies together. Well, there is one guy, but like it's like three, but then there are three women, and it's like every horror movie we are there.
Mm-hmm. Karen, what about you?
I mean, since I was raised with the horror, when I meet other people, like growing up, they're kind of like either accept me because, like it's just a movie genre, or like, oh my God, she's weird. But, growing up, I just had my mom to watch horror with. Sometimes my dad and my brother will like, watch it with us, but most time it's my mom and me. And so, growing up, yeah, with the internet, the age of the interwebs, you could find your little tribe and, connect with other people. And Rebecca's right. Every time I go to see a horror movie, there's nothing but women and their boyfriends. And their boyfriends are like, ah. But when I go to movies, I have that one dedicated girlfriend that I go with, and because she loves horror with me. So yeah, for me, horror is just my experience is it's like ups and downs. People out there accept you for who you are, or don't think you're crazy.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, what about you?
Okay. Well, I was definitely raised on horror because my dad, he and I watched so many horror movies and stuff like that, which got me interested in special effects. And yeah, it was really hard for me because I was raised in the 70s and 80s as well to find actually girls that liked horror. They kind of looked at you like you were either a witch or there was something mentally wrong with you. And then when I discovered I was really good at special effects, I worked on a couple of films, but my credits were not on there because I was a woman. But the positive thing now is that there are more women in special effects than there were before, which is really, really cool. And once I started once I started touring and doing horror cons and doing comic conventions and stuff, I started finding a lot more women that were into horror. And like Karen said, I have one little girlfriend that goes to all the horror movies with me now. And then my roommate, he goes to the horror movies with me as well. But it's definitely more women out there in the audience. And I think since I moved to Colorado, I have more positive experience because in the South, kind of gotta, keep it on the down low. But other than that, I've had nothing but positive, really, because I have friends in the industry that are male and female, and they're like, "What? You do this? That's so cool." So that kind of makes me a little bit, you know, like when before I first started, it was like, "You're a girl, you can't do that," but I did anyway. So
You used to live in the South, Lisa?
yeah, I actually used to live in Atlanta. That's probably where we saw each other.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm originally from Miami, and I lived in I was stuck in Alabama for 11 years,
Oh,
which
I'm
I
sorry.
hated. Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. I escaped. I'm here in Colorado now. So.
Cool. Rebecca, like you, I grew up with a family who did not like horror. I mean, like, they all thought I was crazy when I was like, I love horror movies. They're just like, what is wrong with you? But I don't know. I've always kind of loved it. Again, my birthday's Halloween, so I think it's a little bit my birthright to, enjoy the holiday and all the spooky things that come along with it. As a woman, like now, like looking back at it, I realize like most of the people who I've connected with when it comes to horror have been women. Like every time I've gone to Spooky Empire, it's been with a group of girls. When I go to Halloween Horror Nights, I go with a group of girls. I have like a couple of girlfriends who I'm like, hey, I want to go see this movie. You want to come with me? And they're like, yes. Like automatically, I know that I have them. And growing up, it was always like, because I was a girl, I shouldn't like horror. But then at the same time, like the guys that I knew, they only liked like the superficial horror. They didn't like the actual like gruesome horror. They were kind of like more like, oh yeah, I went and saw this movie. Oh man, it was super scary. And I'm sitting there going, it wasn't scary at all. What are you talking about? And I never understood it, but it was like more for like them to feel macho and to like kind of brag like, oh yeah, I saw this, than them actually enjoying the film. Or they're like, oh yeah, I went to, Screamageddon and it was, oh man, it was so scary. But then like they didn't actually enjoy it. It was more just for like credentials or something along that line. But to, go to a local bookstore wine shop and you can sit there and you can find like this huge group of women to just sit there and chit chat with and just talk horror with. And like the horror book club that they have at the one near me, it's like 75% women. And the guys that are there are all friends with the guy who leads the horror book club. Like that's it. They're just friends of his. That is the only reason why they're even there.
Like,
So
yeah, we're here because of you, buddy.
yeah, they're like, we're supporting you. And it's like,
Bro
and all of us
support,
are like,
yeah.
no, we just like this like really depraved book that we're reading.
Yeah.
But it's always been like a societal like, hey, no, you shouldn't like, instead of it being accepted that we can like it and can enjoy it. So with that being said, who is somebody who kind of like encouraged your love of horror that was probably even a female? It can be somebody who is real. It could be just a fictional character that you like connected with. Who do you guys have? Karen, do you want to start?
Well, for me, the fictional character was Morticia Adams. Even though I never found the show to be horrific or in any type of scary at all, it was just her love for the dark, gothic, macabre, and the fact that she was comfortable in her own skin to like what she liked and hated what she hated. That's what drew me to her and towards my love of horror. Yeah, even though I watched horror with my mom, it was just watching Morticia go through life like, not caring what anybody thought about her for loving what she loved.
Hmm. Honestly, that's the same one for me. Is Morticia was like a major character for me that I was able to connect with and be like, see, she likes the spooky and kooky. Why can't I? Rebecca, what about you?
Yeah, like Karen said, I grew up loving Morticia Addams and Lily Munster. I thought they were just the most beautiful women I had ever seen. Mm-hmm. And the fact, yes, they may have looked, quote unquote weird, but at the same time, they had these very stable, like home, like relationships. They were deeply in love, like with, their husband.
They were healthy relationships.
And they were healthy relationships. They loved their kids. They were, good people. They just happened to, look a little different, which I've always kind of related to. And even though she's not really horror, but when I was little, other little girls wanted to be like Cinderella or Sleeping Beauty or Snow White. I always wanted to be Maleficent. To the point where I took a Barbie doll and tried to, make it into a Maleficent doll because I really, really wanted one. Because again, I thought she was gorgeous and she could turn into a dragon, and who wouldn't want to be able to do that?
Right.
And I still think, as I get older, I relate more and more to her because, like, I don't necessarily want to go to your party, but I at least want to be invited. And exactly. I can see why she's also slighted.
Just a polite invitation.
Exactly. It was just rude not to even invite her.
Yep. Lisa, what about you?
I'll definitely say Lily Munster. There's something that was just so charming about her. And I loved her dress. I always tried to find a dress like hers when I was a kid. I also liked Vampira because she was just a little odd. So the mix between Lily Munster and Vampira were kind of, that was my kind of go thing, because Vampira came from like the B movie weird stuff, and then Lily Munster was a little bit more mainstream, but she was still cool. And you're right, the families were much, much more loving than some of the other families that we saw on TV or in real life. And it was just, it proved a point that you could still be odd and be a good person. And that's one of the reasons what inspired me.
I agree with a lot of you guys. You have Lily Munster, Morticia Addams. I think they were great examples for us that even though we can be weird and like love all this like stuff that people think is dark and crazy and like spooky and scary, we can still be these extremely loving individuals. We can be these people who would bend over backwards for a friend. Hell, I mean, the Addams constantly were bending over backwards for strangers, that we can have these open and honest conversations with our family and friends, and that we can have these healthy relationships, and that at the end of the day, our relationships can be so great. And like Lisa, like you said, in comparison to even some of the other shows that were on at that time, those were healthier relationships in those shows versus the other ones where you had men who talked down to their wives and who didn't show them respect, people who didn't treat their wives with respect in regards to what they did in the house. It's like, wow, why didn't you get this done? And like the misogyny that you could see in those things compared to like these other ones where it was, oh, you didn't get to do that? I'll take care of it, honey. Don't worry about it.
Right. Exactly.
So I thought that like that was always kind of cool. And then to be perfectly honest, I really liked Elvira as somebody who can show like you can have this like beautiful femininity, you can be spooky, and it's just a thing. It can just be part of your identity. It doesn't have to be your identity. It's just a part of you. And especially as somebody who is growing up a little more womanly figured than some of the other girls that I was in school with, to see somebody who was shaped a little bit different was like, okay, she's into spooky stuff too. Cool. Compared to a lot of the people I was in school with who were into spooky stuff who, they looked like 12-year-old boys. And I'm like, I don't look like that. I can't dress like that. But I like the spooky. What do I do? So yeah, that's kind of where I sit. Do you think that these people have had long-lasting effects in like our thought processes?
I absolutely think the fact that, shows like The Munsters and the Addams Family were on, back in the 60s, and they're still like, very popular characters. They're still making new properties, for better or worse on those shows. and those characters, you can go to any like horror convention now and still see little kids who absolutely know who those characters are. And again, they've obviously, and people like, and like Vampira, who've obviously inspired people like Elvira and, Darcy the Mail Girl and all, a lot of other like women in horror. Yeah, I think they will continue to inspire, women horror characters for, forever.
Can agree with that.
Till the end of time.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Wherever that may be.
Okay.
Where's my Gomez?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would settle for a Herman. I mean, honestly.
Right?
That's true.
I see all these like people are like, oh, I want a love like Joker and Harley. And I'm like, what are you talking about? That is extremely toxic and not healthy at all.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
Like,
it's not.
give me a Gomez and Morticia. Give me a
Yes.
Lily and Herman.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I would
give me a
that.
Gomez, give me a Jack Skellington. Yeah, I'm good.
And Sally, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So with us kind of opening that door of like women who've influenced us, what are some influential women in horror that as actresses that you think are top notch and that like are amazing? Personally, I think Faye Ware, who was one of the first like horror actresses, kind of opened the door for women being main characters in some of the storytelling. But then I'm also going to go ahead and throw this out. Florence Pugh. She's new to the more horror genre, but I think she did such a phenomenal job in Midsommar that, like, I'm sorry, like that was perfect character.
she's great.
She did an amazing job. And if she is going to be what women look like in horror from here on out, I'm perfectly okay with that. I think she's probably going to be kind of part of that like swing of how women are viewed in the storytelling of horror. What do you guys think?
For me, it would always be Jamie Lee Curtis because she was like the original Scream Queen. Because I grew up watching Jamie Lee Curtis like in The Fog, Prom Night, almost every single Halloween movie except for 3. She wasn't in 3 of them. So for me, like from like growing up, it was Jamie Lee Curtis that made me like love horror a little more. I'm like, yeah, that's a female protagonist. She got this.
Yeah, I 100% agree about Jamie Lee Curtis. Oscar winner now. Phenomenal
Yes.
actress.
She is phenomenal.
She was such a,
Yeah.
I mean, she's such a great actress, and her character as Laurie was, such a strong, amazing woman. Another actress that I always liked growing up was Adrienne Barbeau, who
Mhm.
was
yeah.
in The Fog and Escape from New York and Creepshow.
Freak show,
And
yeah.
Yeah.
she's even continuing. I still see her pop up in like the Creepshow TV show. And again, she's one of those women, she was really funny and smart. And even as a younger girl who, as someone else said earlier, was a little like developed a little earlier in life. I loved the fact that she sort of owned her femininity and owned her sexuality without, but she was still, she didn't diminish her at all. Like she was still a very strong character, and she wasn't really, relying on, like Jamie Lee Curtis wasn't relying on a guy to come save her.
Right.
Right?
I will have to say 2 of my favorites are Barbara Steele and Carolyn Monroe.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I love Carolyn Monroe in all the Hammer
Mhm.
films. She does a great job. Barbara Steele, she's just such a strong personality and such a beautiful woman. And I've seen like so many of her films, and I remember Black Sunday like the back of my hand. Those 2 are like, as far as past, those definitely, they both have inspired me, and I think they're very great actors. I don't remember if Barbara Steele is still alive or not. I got to remember.
I don't think that she is.
I think she
I know
passed
Carol
away.
Monroe is, because I just met her
Yes.
last year at Monsterama, and she is a lovely, lovely woman, and she still looks. I mean, she's still gorgeous.
Absolutely. And then another odd one is Tilda Swinton.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That woman. She is so great. She can play any role she wants, whether male or female, and she does a good job. She just has that face and the expressions. And there's something about her that just kind of, it can really creep you out sometimes. She's just so intense. So those are my three that I really, really go for.
I have to also add on Miss Karen Black into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved many of the horror movies that she's been in. There was this one that she started, like it was a short story anthology, and she started all three.
I know which one you're
Trilogy
talking
of
about.
Terror.
Yes.
Trilogy of Terror. Yeah.
And
Oh, that's
she did
great. Yeah.
a great job. And I remember there was one movie that me and my mom watched. It was a 70s movie. It's Alive.
Sentinel. Oh, It's Alive.
Yeah. It had her in it, and I was like, "This is a great movie, Mom." And Mom's like, "Okay."
Wasn't she
didn't
also
understand.
wasn't she also in Burnt Offerings, which was really creepy?
Yeah.
She did a great job at that.
That is a very creepy film.
Yeah.
By the way, Barbara Steele is still alive.
Okay.
Oh,
good.
Okay, great.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, I had to look that up. I was like,
I guess she's maybe probably not as doing as much as Carolyn Monroe, who still seems to be working. But
yeah,
I mean, she's almost 100. So
yeah, I can see she's probably not traveling to cons as much as someone like Carolyn Monroe is.
Yeah, I'm also going to add another name in here. Sigourney Weaver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She would be on my list as well.
I mean, Alien alone is a fantastic film, and she played an amazing character. But then you also have her in like Ghostbusters and like all sorts of like other films where she
Cabin in the Woods.
Cabin in the Woods. She just plays an
Snow
amazing
White.
character. She is in Snow White, yeah.
Yeah, she did the best Wicked Queen ever. I mean, I actually bought on Blu-ray, so I'm going to show my roommate thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, she did a great Evil Queen. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah, she did phenomenal. Any other shout outs you guys would like to make?
I'm also going to I would like to add Linnea Quigley, who is not as well known, maybe. I mean, but if you're a fan of 80s horror, you absolutely know who this woman is because she was in, I think, literally every horror movie that came out in the 90s.
Yeah, I was gonna say she kind of was like the scream queen of the 80s.
Name sort of like a B horror movie, and I can almost guarantee that she was in it. Not to mention, she's a lovely woman and very sweet. But again, she, she just always just looked like she was having the best time. She never looked bored. She always, movies may not have been the best, may not have been Oscar quality, but she always gave it her best. And like I said, she always looked like she was having a great time with those films.
I want to shout out to Barbara Crampton. That woman,
there we go.
She's so great. She started out, doing Reanimator, and now she's writing and producing horror movies, and she's been in a lot lately. So it's really, really
she's got a resurgence going on, which is great.
Yeah.
And speaking of somebody who has gone from on screen to behind the screen, let's talk about actually some behind the scenes people that we are absolutely in love with, specifically like special effects and directors. Who wants to go first?
I will shout out someone that I don't think gets as much recognition as they should, but hopefully that's going to change soon. And that was Deborah Hill, who was a producer and a writer who worked a lot with her former partner, John Carpenter, doing movies like Halloween and The Fog and Escape from New York, not to mention many other things. Basically, those movies would not have been what they were without her. I did hear that Jamie Lee Curtis is working or co-producing, I think, a documentary about her that hopefully will get her a little bit more recognition.
I heard about
in
that
the community,
but it was like just like a small blurb, so I was like, "Is this really happening?" But that's really cool.
I would like to say that Amy Holden, she was a director of Slumber Party Massacre, which
Mhm.
kind of like when I first saw it, I was like, I don't want to do any slumber parties anymore, Mom. I don't want to sleep at anybody's house. Um, and then she also did the Relic, which was really good
Oh
too.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
And my favorite movie was directed by Antonia Bird, Ravenous. Does anybody
Oh,
remember
that's a good one.
Ravenous?
Yes,
Oh,
that's a
yes.
good one.
Yeah, she
Yes.
directed that
That
one.
was, yeah, that was like way better than I thought it was going to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
And
was
I will
much
say
better.
it was probably because of the directing.
Yeah. It looked gorgeous.
From what I understand with that movie is they had one director, but he quit, and so they went to her, and so she brought it.
She
Um,
did.
I did not know this. Found out recently that the director for American Psycho was a woman, and I believe her name was Mary Herron.
Heron.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds
Mary
familiar.
Heron.
Yeah, that was like one of the best movies that I've seen. With my brother, he took me to he took me actually to the movie theater, little teenager with her brother, and he was like, "Ooh, maybe I shouldn't have taken you with me to watch this movie." And I was like, "No, this is amazing. I love it."
Lisa, what about you?
Oh, well, I have this Cynthia Garza, and she does a lot of prosthetics for teeth, vampire teeth, all this other stuff. And she's always in the background, but she's been on about 4 or 5 films about with vampires and demons and stuff like that. She does phenomenal molds and stuff. And then there's another girl, I can't remember her name, but she actually built the pterodactyls for Jurassic Park 3, which is
Okay,
really,
Oh,
that was pretty cool. I mean,
that is cool.
I think her name is Jennifer, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And I was trying to find her, but definitely Cynthia. She's, when it comes to making like teeth and other prosthetics, she is like great.
So for female directors that I think should have a little bit more kudos than what they have is the one who actually inspired Hitchcock, and her name is Alice Blanchet.
Mhm.
She actually did quite a few films on the horror spectrum that inspired Hitchcock to film the way he filmed. And so, and she became kind of like lost to history. I think she should have like a little bit more kudos than what she does. There's also Millicent Patrick, who was the woman who
yes.
did the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and
Right.
was one of like the first like special effects women to really like master the craft and kind of like make a name for herself. But then you also have women like the one who did Pan's Labyrinth, Crimson Peak, The Orphanage. Probably gonna butcher her name, and I feel so bad because I think she's brilliant. I think she did a fantastic job. Montse Rib.
I think that's right.
Okay. I mean, Pan's Labyrinth, I think is it, I mean, it is beautifully shot, but the special effects, like the creatures, the whole nine, it's if you if you don't feel like uneased by some of the creatures that you come across, are you even alive? Like, are you human? Because it's just so well done.
Yeah, it's just like gorgeous
Yeah.
gothic fairy tale nightmare.
Yep.
Love it.
But
And
by the way, for those who are listening to this, like half of us put our hands in front of our eyes, like the one
yes,
creature.
I actually drew the preacher at one time. So
So writers, who are some writers that the directors, the special effects, the actresses, they couldn't do any of this without the writers. Who are some writers that we love?
I have a particular one that's one of my favorites is Nancy Collins. She writes some of the best books ever. I remember when I first read some of them, Sunglasses After Dark, like back in the 80s when she first started out. They are really, really good. So she's got to be one of my favorite horror writers.
Nancy is awesome. I just saw her this weekend, actually.
Oh,
Oh, that's
awesome.
awesome.
She lives
She's really
in
cool.
Macon, but she came up. There was a symposium here in Atlanta on weird fiction, like weird horror. and with a lot of female writers, which was very cool. And she came up for that. Yeah, one of my favorite writers is her name was Shirley Jackson, and who wrote a classic book that I'm sure a lot of people have heard of called The Haunting of Hill House, which was just made into a fantastic Netflix series. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it, as well as a great movie in the 60s and a terrible movie in the 90s.
Hey, now, I actually enjoy the 90s movie. Okay.
I'm not going to knock anybody's choices. It was not my vibe. I will just say that. But she's written a lot of other great stuff. But The Haunting of Hill House and a short story that she did called The Lottery are probably the two that most people would have heard of.
The Lottery was unnerving.
Yeah, I remember reading that in like high school.
Me too.
Like, I actually had to reread through some of her stuff, and I have to agree with you, because I didn't really think V.C. Andrews was horror enough, but I had to reread through some of it, and I was like, you know what? She is horror. Her estate is a horror, because she died in the 80s, and then they got a ghostwriter to do her thing and to do the rest of her stories, and it's continued on. But I found out her life kind of, to use parts of her life for some of her stories. And I thought that was like really interesting. But we can't go on the whole one of the writers without mentioning Mary Shelley. We cannot fail to mention her.
Agreed.
Yeah, Mary Shelley is absolutely fantastic. She was on my list of writers to put down. And the way there were so many people who thought she didn't write it. That's like, what are you talking about? Come on. I also really
she's a woman. That's the reason why they thought she didn't.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, for a long time, people just thought, oh, she just helped her husband out with his books. And it wasn't until much later, well after she died, that she even started gaining any sort of recognition for her work.
Yep. But I also like Daphne du Maurier.
Yeah, du Maurier. Yeah.
Du Maurier. She wrote Rebecca. She wrote The Birds that Alfred Hitchcock ended up doing. I think she's a brilliant author. Mary Shelley's obviously amazing. And Celia Moreno Garcia is also another one that I really enjoy. I've only read Mexican Gothic, but I enjoyed that book. I thought it was absolutely amazing.
Now, there's also Poppy Z. Bright.
Yes. I read Lost Souls probably
that
20
was really
times.
good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As a young goth, that was like that and Sunglasses After Dark were like the books to read.
Yeah.
Yep.
We also have to throw Anne Rice with the Vampire Chronicles, in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Not Stephanie Myers.
No. Again, not going to knock what anybody's into, because she has her fans. But yeah.
Yeah, no yucking somebody's yum. However.
Exactly.
No.
But no, Anne Rice. And again, I didn't really read her like later stuff, but especially the first 4 books in the Vampire Chronicles, I thought were phenomenal. Yeah. And again, I think I read Interview with the Vampire when I was 13, and was just like, yes. I was like, oh, I want to meet Lestat. I want to be a vampire.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm good. I like being alive. Okay. So what characters do we think were extremely influential for women and the women genre and women in horror, the whole nine?
Oh, go ahead, Karen. Sorry,
Miss Rebecca, because I was just right on the top of my head, and it popped in was Elaine Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
She is like the top-notch character for me because she isn't defined by the men around her, and she's not reliant on them to save the day. She's like the final girl that survives every situation, and I'm like, I want to be with you. And she has the nerve to do what's what's right, even though it means sacrificing a crew member. Like when John Hurt's character has a fucking face on him, and she's like, no, and everyone's like, no, we need to let him. No, I don't went with her because I'm like, see, y'all let him in. Now everyone's dying. She had the nerve to say no. We're not letting him. So yeah,
yeah, 100% agree with Ripley. Ripley and Laurie Strode were two women that they weren't waiting around for anybody else to save them.
Right.
They took charge of the situation. They, were like, "Hey, I'm in this. I'm going to save myself," and they did. And they were like really well written characters, and again, we've talked about the actresses, but portrayed by two incredible actresses. And I've always said that if I was ever in a situation like that, I would just look to both of them as like, what would Laurie do? What would Ripley do?
Yep.
I definitely have to agree with you guys on that one. Ripley's definitely one. We're going to do this. I don't care if you like it or not. And she gets it done. And Laurie, she's put up with a lot of stuff and she survived it. Yeah, I definitely like those two characters a lot. So I agree with you guys.
Yeah, those two characters are on my list as well. So, the fact that we have all four of us are going, yeah, Ripley and Laurie. Yep. Those two. I am going to say this one though. I think this one's kind of like a fun one that kind of, when you actually look at the character and how women are written in horror, you can see like the difference. And that is Carrie. She was the hero, but she was also the monster, quote unquote. Like, I think that is kind of interesting that we have such a character that is like that was
It's a very tragic character.
Yeah, very tragic, but in like almost all the right ways. Like you could see like this, like if things had just been slightly different, she wouldn't have had any of the problems.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
It's like that just slight difference, and the powers that she had wouldn't have been considered bad or evil. They would have been a blessing or, a good thing. She would have been, like a superhero or something like that. Right. So I think for her, like her storytelling and like the way that they shaped that character, I think was influential in the genre as a whole and how they kind of started to change. And like the other two ladies, they're all kind of part of this like new elevated horror before it was elevated horror. They're this, the survivor, doesn't need to have this like woe is me victim mindset. They're like, no, I got this. It's one of the reasons why You're Next is one of my favorite films. The female lead.
Yeah.
She's like, I got this. Check it. Watch it.
I mean, it's like, also Sydney from Scream could be like added in there because she's been, people around her like dying, disappearing, and finally she just gets fed up. I'm like, you know what? I'm throwing hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Even though she's the victim, she doesn't act like a victim.
Yeah.
Right. And knowing, even like her knowing all of the like the horror tropes, like even though she still finds herself in those horror trope situations, she's able to kind of outsmart the killers. And again, she's doesn't really need anybody else to save her. She's, taking charge and saving other people.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I kind of mentioned elevated horror, which is kind of like a new term. A lot of people don't really understand it or know it, but it kind of talks about like the change in horror as a genre and how it's being a little bit more inclusive, and the way that the storytelling is being more than like, oh, there's this chick, she's the damsel in distress, she's running from like this monster, whatever. How do we feel about like that change, and do we think it's going about it the right way? Because there are right ways and wrong ways to kind of go about changing how a story is being told.
I mean, I'm all for the whole change of damsel in distress because I get so tired of it. I want to see a strong female character just take lead and say, you know what? We're going to survive this. I'm not going to let any of y'all die. We're going to survive this. And we're going to take out the monster. Okay. I might not agree with her about taking out the monster. I'll agree with her surviving. But the methods, going about to making the female character more of a person is actually, going in the right direction, because she's no longer that little trope of damsel in distress. She's now a character that people could actually connect with, because not every woman is a damsel in distress. A lot of women are very strong and independent, and you know what? That's what I like about what horror is doing for women, is giving them their own voice. So yeah, I think they're going in the right direction with this whole elevated horror. I mean, the witch. I mean, she had the decision: either do I want to become like my family, or do I want to embrace?
She decided to live deliciously.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I 100% agree. I've really been enjoying they're not necessarily even heroes, but like, especially in like newer films, these really strong, interesting characters like Toni Collette in Hereditary, and Florence Pugh in Midsommar, and Mia Goth in Pearl and X, and so you've got these like really kind of original, interesting horror films that are coming out now, which, some I like more than others, but I love the fact that, it's not just, as Karen said, it's not just like, oh, there's a guy in the woods killing people or whatever.
Yeah.
And that you have these women whose characters are more like fleshed out. You feel like you know them a little bit more than they're just some like faceless girl with boobs, or running around in the woods, or even trying to running around, or either as the victim or the hero. You feel like you know them a little bit more, and you sort of understand their plight and their situation.
It's more than just the prey versus the predator, basicness to it. There's actually more to it. Like even in like the movie Flesh with Sebastian Stan, you actually like felt for that character. You actually felt for one of his other victims, that you were like, she has to pretend to be married to this man? Oh my goodness. Like there was so much more to those female characters that you're like, okay, yeah, like I get it. Like I understand.
Like, one of the female characters I really enjoy is in A Quiet Place, the mom. I forget the character's name. Like, I enjoyed her character because you can understand her loss and pain when she lost one of her kids, and then to give birth quietly.
Oh,
right.
Wow, yeah.
Oh, and when she stepped on that nail, oh my God.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, Emily Blunt was great in that film.
She was. I mean, even her husband said, he's like, I don't know how to like not work with another actress, because she was just so good. Like she was perfection on the set. Like it was so good.
Like in The Mist, there was this one, I don't know the actress's name, but she was the mom that says, I'm going to go get my kids regardless of the monsters. And then at the end, you see her like survived. And you're like, yeah, she didn't care about following everybody in the grocery store and everything like that. And that's what I like. I like when a woman actually they're more independent. And I also like them as anti-heroes as well. So it's kind of nice. It connects you with the character, because everybody's so used to the helpless female, like everybody's saying, that you can't really connect it, because nowadays you've got your helpless females, but you want a character with something you could bite your teeth into and have empathy with and love and hate them all at the same time. So
yeah, you want to have that connection.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Imaginary, I was really connected with one of the characters in there, and I was like, yeah.
Imaginary is a good one to talk about the depth of a female character, and multiple female characters. I mean, you had technically like 4 that were pretty like influential for like the plot, and all of them were fleshed out characters. Like by the end of the movie, you understood the motive and the thought process of that character. whether or not they were on the screen for the entire movie or for just like 5 minutes total. So I
Right.
think that's kind of cool that it's progressing in that direction where you can have such depth and build for storytelling.
Love fleshed out characters, man or woman, or even animal. You just love that fleshed out character.
Good characters.
Yeah.
Yep. So when you kind of go back and look at some like horror before this like slow change that we're having, you actually, if you like timed things out, women were actually being killed twice as long in a scene versus their male counterparts. What are our thoughts on that?
That's a good point. And the more I think about it, yeah, and I don't know if it's because there were more female victims than male victims. Although, like Friday the 13th seemed to have sort of an equal amount of male and female. I mean, mainly because they were killed while they were having sex. But
Sexy.
Exactly.
Rule number one.
yeah, it almost seemed like it did almost seem in some movies, it did seem like they were punishing the women more
Yeah.
for the sin of, having sex or doing drugs or whatever the reason they were killed, because they dared to be out in the woods, or dared, to, run around without a bra on. And so I do have to wonder if it was because of that, because, again, because throughout history, women tend to be punished more for things that men, get away with scot-free.
It's more like you want to have a more of a emotion when a woman's getting killed because she is that whole innocent damsel that needs to be rescued, but no one's coming to rescue her because there's no around. There's no hero for her. So you want to have that connection of, oh no, don't kill her type of vibe. Whereas you see a guy get killed, oh well, he's
Yeah.
just a dude. But save this girl. That's how I see it.
So you're saying that it's more of a lack of empathy for male characters versus female characters?
That's what it seems like for me. Because
Okay.
when I was watching what movie was it? Hostel again. One of the scenes is where they were torturing a female character for a long time, and you wanted to feel, some empathy for her, and you wanted the bad guy punished. There was also another movie, The Den, which was about the dark web, or something, and most of the females you see get killed gruesomely, but the men are like, bloop, and he's dead.
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Because you want to feel for those female characters. You want them to survive, but in the end, in your heart, they're not going to survive.
I also think it's a psychology behind it that men are stronger, so you have to kill them quicker. I know this sounds weird, and they want to make you feel more empathy for the women because they're the weaker sex, supposedly. Back in the day, they were considered that, but so maybe the torturing just makes trying to bring out more emotions, because I was watching Dagon last night, and they were torturing the women way longer than they were the men. The men were like, and then the women, they prolonged it when it could have, and that was a 2001 film. So I think we're turning around quite a bit, but that's just my is because I think it's still that backward psychology that women are weaker. So you have to feel more sorry for them, and they want to bring more empathy into the movie. So you want to rescue them. Whereas men, like, they're strong anyway. So we'll get another one to replace them after we kill this one. I mean, if that makes any sense at all. I mean,
Yeah, because at being someone who's trained in fighting, you want to take the man down as quickly as possible. So killing a man right quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know in preparing for this podcast, I kind of went through a bunch of different articles specifically about women in horror. And a lot of them actually talked about the misrepresentation of women in horror and how it's not truly the actual story of women in society currently. A lot of times they talked about is this killing of women 2 times longer than a man, is that also for the male gaze. Is that part of misogyny? And the people who are creating it, is it because they themselves as men hate women? And so I thought that was kind of interesting that like that was the theme of, I want to say like 4 different articles that I read. That was almost the entire theme. And I was like, that's an interesting take. I
Okay,
don't
when was these articles
quite
printed?
agree. Through many different years.
Okay.
Over like the past 10 years, it was all
Wow.
scattered throughout. It wasn't like
Wow.
it wasn't like they were all written in like the past like couple of years. Like one was like pre-pandemic, and actually a couple were pre-pandemic and a couple were post-pandemic. So it's not like it's all like super recent.
And
But
I'm sure there are examples where that's true. I don't necessarily think that that's the case with the majority of horror, especially because, like I said, even though you see, women killed longer, or more often, a lot of times the main, like, especially, the whole trope of the final girl, in these films, although, like I said, and Cabin in the Woods, I thought did a great job of sort of examining those tropes. You have like the virginal, innocent girl who tends to wind up being the final girl. Like you never see her, having sex or doing drugs or anything like that. And so she's usually the one that survives, or is able to take down the killer. And then, but yet, the ones that are having sex in the woods or doing drugs or whatever, like I said, I wonder if there's that, like, whether it's intentional or not, that like we have to punish them because they're being bad. So they have to be punished by,
like that whole red pill, alpha, whatever. Yeah, I mean, as a woman watching horror, that wasn't my first like thought or instinct or whatever. My first kind of thought was like, oh, 9 times out of 10, it's the females who are like more like centralized characters, and the guys are just kind of like their good buddy who's there with them, or their boyfriend who's there with them, and so they're just getting rid of them. They're not like the focus of the story. They're not the focus of the plot. So, like, why would you not like? Why would you prolong that isn't important to the plot versus like another character who is? And so I was like, that's a weird take. There was one article specifically out of about a researcher out of Mexico who was like, things need to change, and was like very like hard on like women representation. And when I started like getting towards the end of the article, part of it's because Mexican storytelling and filmmaking is nowhere near where we are here in the United States. So like her mindset is from like our 70s, our 60s when it comes to filmmaking and storytelling and horror specifically. So I'm like, I feel like you've got some like skewed data on like female representation in horror. I'm like, yes, but no, like it's not like that anymore. And so I thought that was kind of interesting as well. So
fun fact. Cabin in the Woods. The male nerd that survives, but Marty, I find it interesting that he didn't take his clothes off throughout the whole movie. And the reason why was because with his clothes off, he looked better than Chris Hemsworth.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
Facts.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if that must have. I think that wasn't that. I think that movie was pre-Thor. So
it was pre-Thor, but the guy who played the nerd also was doing like another role, and he was kind of working out for that other role.
I was going to say, yeah, and he was also on a great show called Dollhouse.
Yeah.
That
I love that show.
Short-lived, but short-lived.
So
but
way too short.
Like with a lot of those shows, short-lived but great.
Right. Yeah, but he was on like another project where he actually had to work out because physically he had to be able to do things. So he was working out. That was the only reason why he had that physique. He's like, just I'm naturally lean and I had to work out. So
just keep your clothes on. Okay.
Okay, so So, kind of time for us to go ahead and wrap up. So what are our final thoughts as women who are fans of horror? Like, what are your final thoughts? And what film would you love to be in?
My final thoughts was horror will never get old, and it will just get better over time. That's my final thoughts on that.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's an exciting time to be a horror fan right now. There's so much good stuff that's come out over the past few years, and it is continuing to come out, and is on the pipeline. I for one am very excited for the next Alien film.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I mean, I know I would probably get killed in like 10 seconds, but I kind of want to see a xenomorph in person. So I would like to be in an alien movie. Just like, I like if Jurassic Park were real, I would absolutely go. I would like sell my house to go to that park, even though I would probably die. But
I mean, if you want to go meet a velociraptor, you just got to go down to Orlando.
I have to. No, I want to. I
greet.
want to meet a brachiosaurus. I want to like give him like little like nose boops.
Nose boops.
Yeah.
They do have a very boopable nose.
I know.
Very boopable. Lisa, what about you?
I definitely think that the evolution of horror with the female characters is getting a lot better. We're getting better characters where everybody and can like feel like you're in their shoes. And also, if I was to be in a horror movie, I would have to say that I'd want to be one of the Cenobites in Hellraiser.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
I would love to like just be like
That'd be fun.
The Queen of Hell, just so I could throw the chains and whatever else.
Oh, if
we have such sights to show you.
Yes.
If I was in a movie, I'll be like one of Jigsaw's partners, because he had a lot of them. So I'll be like one of his with my own movie.
Set in the traps.
In the traps. I want to play a game. Let's play a game.
Of course you do, Karen. Of course you do. I asked this question, and I feel like it's kind of a hard one because there's so many that I would love to be part of. Like, American Werewolf in London. That would be like a really fun one to be a part of. You're next. It's one of my favorites, and it's a go-to for me. I would love to be like Homegirl's like friend who came along and like ends up surviving with her. But I think the genre as a whole, I think, is becoming more and more developed. It has always been a reflection of society, of the real world around us. So, of course, as the real world changes, horror itself will change. And I think it's kind of cool to see how we are growing and how we are developing and how we are becoming more 3D individuals ourselves to then be able to transport that into film, into storytelling, and having more fleshed out characters as a whole. So now that we are done, Miss Rebecca, you are now entering the electric chair. So any of our time listeners who've listened to that very first episode where we introduce ourselves, you kind of know what the electric chair is. If you're brand new, this is your first episode, I'll give you a quick little snippet. On Earth Station 1, they do a thing called the Geek Seat. And so they ask some fun questions so you can get to know the guest. Well, we decided we wanted to do it, but with a slight twist. Because we are horror, we love spooky things. And what is more spooky and scary than sitting in an electric chair? So, with that being said, we will ask 3 questions of our lovely guest. And we'll get to learn a little bit more about her. If she gives the right answers, she won't be shocked. So here we go. First question. What is your favorite horror villain?
Well, the people that know me would probably expect me to say one of the Universal monsters, although I don't see them as villains. I think they were more misunderstood than anything else. So probably my favorite villain right now is Sam from the movie Trick or Treat. Just because I am very I consider Halloween very sacred, as does Sam. And when people screw up the rituals, I get very upset with them, and so I totally relate to him. And his little costume is very cute.
Personally, I know I'm kind of speaking for Lisa and Karen on this. This is a Sam Stan account, so you're good. Like, we love Sam here. All right. So now it is time for Kiss, Marry, Kill. And you have to kiss, Marry, kill either Sydney from Scream, Ripley from Alien, or Lily Munster. And it's the OG Lily Munster, not the Rob Zombie remake.
Thank you. So Sydney, Ripley, and Lily.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. I would probably kiss Ripley, kill Sydney, and marry Lily.
That's fair. That's fair.
Even though I like Sydney as a character, but someone's got to go, and I wouldn't have the heart to take out either Lily or Ripley. And I think Lily would be, she's a phenomenal wife. So, and I could wear her clothes and it'd be awesome.
Okay. Lisa, Karen, do you guys have any comments on that?
For me, because I love me a strong, independent woman, I'll be like marrying Ripley, because we'd be together fighting the alien queen and her offspring. I would kiss, Lily Munster because she's so beautiful. But I would have to kill Sydney because, even though she could throw hands, she cannot go against Jigsaw. She cannot win against Jigsaw.
Gotcha.
I would definitely marry Ripley and kiss Lily. And yeah, I'd have to agree. I have to kill Sydney.
Oh, so we all want to kill Sydney.
Yeah.
I actually don't want to kill Sydney. I would actually kill Ripley only because I know personality-wise, her and I would not get along. And I kind of need to get along with you in order to be able to kiss you. So I would kiss Sydney, kill Ripley, and marry Lily Munster. All right. But the final question for Rebecca in the electric chair. What two fictional characters would you choose to help you survive a horror film?
Oh, well, we've been talking about them the whole episode. So I would absolutely pick Laurie Strode and Ellen Ripley. Regardless of who I've got coming at me, whether it's, human or not human. I figure with both of them, I'm good. Because one is, they're both smart. They're both good with weapons. So
that is a great answer.
Resourceful women.
Exactly. Very resourceful.
Good answer. I like that. Okay. So, for all of you who are listening, who is your queen of horror? We'd love to hear. Tell us your thoughts and stuff like that in the comments and everything. You can tell us on our social media so you can contribute to this conversation and we can continue talking about it all. And if you are a woman, tell us your experience with horror. We'd love to hear about it. Here, we are on Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads. We have our Facebook group. You can also subscribe, rate us, and like us, and all the things where you can listen to podcasts. So you can also follow us individually. And so where can we find all of our loveliness? Rebecca, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. Not on either social media a whole lot. I'm not on the artist formerly known as Twitter. But yeah, Facebook and Instagram are the two.
Okay. Lisa, where can they find you?
You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, but I don't really pay attention to it. And you can find me on Threads.
All righty. And Karen, what about you?
You almost said face goods. I heard you. You caught yourself. I mean, just check out my link tree, man. This right there. It has everything.
And you can find me on all the things at Spilled Tea Wine Media Mind. But before we go, we want to thank you, the listener, for joining us. We really do appreciate your support. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the fun things. But really, honestly, thank you. And thank you, Rebecca, for coming on and chatting with us.
You.
We can't wait to
Thank
have
you
you
for
on
having
again.
me.
Oh, you're more
This was
than
so much
welcome.
fun.
Great.
Thank you.
Yay! Well, stay spooky, our lovely ghouls.